As I've stated once before, this fourth quarter at my old job was one of the worst ones that I had dealt with. Not necessarily because of the quantity of work, although it certainly didn't help. Not necessarily because the seasonal employees were worse than normal. It was because this year I was put into a situation where I was an underpaid team lead, which essentially means they treat me like a team lead, but don't pay me like one. It was a management problem. I eventually hit a breaking point. I had lots of plans in my head, trying to figure out what to do next, because my lease is up in April, and at that point I have to make a decision. And I was waiting for my lease to be up to figure out what I'm going to do and make a decision from there. However, I hit such a breaking point in December that I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I found a new job and quit. I didn't storm out or anything, but if I had gotten some particularly bad attitude from a manager one more time, it was possible that I might have. One thing I wish I knew when I started working there at 17 was that any low-paying job will take your hard work and will make it the standard. If there is any advice I could give to a teenager about to start a low-paying job, number one, I would say work your wage. If you are being paid minimum wage, put minimum wage effort into the job. Running yourself ragged is not worth $7.25 an hour. I got paid more than that, but I know some of you get paid much, much less. Work your wage. Second piece of advice I would give teenagers starting a job: never give maximum effort in a low-paying job. In fact, I'd say any job, unless you are confident that you are going to get promoted, do not put maximum effort into the job. Why? And this spans salaried jobs as well. This is good advice for adults too. They're going to take your maximum effort and they're going to make it the standard. They're going to expect it from you from then on forward. And every time you do average effort, they'll consider that slacking off, when really you're giving, the same effort as everyone else. That is some advice I would give, and I wish that I had heeded when I was 17. I wanted validation at work. I thought that maybe there was a chance of promotion in the future, which is a laughable concept with what I know now. Any competitiveness that I have sort of was fueled by our number system. Those of you that are new and don't know, I worked shipping, and we were the only department where they could pretty much track everything that we did and track our productivity, as we called it. Seeing your numbers compared to everybody else's sparked that competitiveness within me. I didn't want to suck. I did it because I wanted the validation. And it was eventually given to me. I got pretty good at the job pretty fast. But then I started to take on other responsibilities, and that was my second mistake. I then started to shoulder team lead responsibilities. As the other story went, if you didn't see it, I was essentially in charge of 20 people for about 5 hours, and that did not go well because I'm not a team lead. And I didn't even have another experienced team member with me on that day like a team lead would normally have. So I was fucked for obvious reasons. Now, this was not only a mistake because I was taking on more work than my pay grade would have needed from me, but it was also a mistake because I watched what happened when people did that. I liked the validation so much and the respect so much that I ignored what happened when people took on those responsibilities. They turned into underpaid team leads. The first strike was watching a hardworking worker, a candidate for the night team lead, get disrespected and denied the position, only to have to train the person they hired from outside. What you need to know is that they essentially denied her the position, and then they made her train the team lead that they did hire. Fun fact, that's not the first time that that's happened. That was the first strike, and that's when I started to get an icky feeling. Probably should have been the last strike, but I would have felt like an asshole leaving in the middle of fourth quarter. I should have done it. But I would have felt like an asshole to the people on my team that I didn't hate, that I genuinely were like friends with. I would have felt bad. So I didn't. I wouldn't have felt bad for management, however. Second strike was the attitude of my direct team lead. She's not terrible at what she does. I'll say that. She can lead. The problem is she micromanages, first and foremost. And we all had a theory that because she micromanaged the trainees suddenly didn't know how to make decisions for themselves, make, quick judgments or anything. They just would go to somebody and ask, and they refused to make judgments for themselves. And I think it was because she scared them with her micromanaging. It caused strife for all the other skilled team members because we had to babysit all of these trainees all the time. I don't mind helping trainees. I don't. But there's a certain point where you start to wonder, why can't they think for themselves? Why can't they make this simple judgment? It's not even difficult judgments either. It's pretty straightforward. But they were scared. They were scared of getting yelled at, of getting attitude. And that's the second thing is she has a tone problem. No, I'm not one to tone police usually, just because I know that my tone is not great either. But if you are in a management position, it's kind of your fucking job. If you are in a management position, it is your job to keep yourself in check because you have so much power over these people. You are paid to check yourself. But she had a terrible tone problem, and I was one of the only people that could really figure out when she was actually mad at me or when she was just being an ass. I was one of the only ones that could tell. And I certainly did not blame the other people that couldn't tell because it was difficult. I understand that she was under a lot of stress. We got 10,000 units dumped on us in one day. I understand. I do. There is a certain point where you start to drive some of your team members away. When she would come into work, the mood would suddenly sour. It's like when your mom is angry. The entire house has this terrible feeling in it. It's like that. She came into work and all the happiness drained from everyone. Some people got hit with it worse because she did choose favorites and she would hold grudges on you. I managed to avoid it because of my authority manipulation, but she likes to choose men on her team to be her star boys, to, become underpaid team leads for her and, do her heavy lifting. It meant that she liked you, but it also meant that you were going to do underpaid team lead shit. So pros and cons. With the women on the team, it wasn't the same. She kind of, I don't know if she held them to a higher standard because I could get away with things that others could not. And she would also always talk shit about other team members to me, and I would sometimes defend them, just lightly nudge her in the right direction. She just made the department unbearable to be in sometimes, for the exact reason I said before. It's like when your mom is angry and the entire house feels terrible. But there was one point where she blew up on me a little bit, and once again, I think I was the only one that could tell that it wasn't my fault. And she wasn't mad at me, but she was mad at the situation. But everyone else that watched it happen was like, are you okay? And mind you, I can deal with it. It is what it is. Does it mean that it should have happened? No. But I'll be fine. Just did not handle the pressure well, and she took it out on a lot of people. I was also in a stressful situation too, being treated as underpaid team lead. Second strike. Am I on second or third? I don't know. I'm making it second because this kind of goes into it. Back in October, they handed out papers and said, okay, you need to give us your fourth quarter availability right now. And we were like, fine. I gave open availability, kind of as a joke, but I also knew what was to come if I did that, and I was hoping I was wrong, but I wasn't. Years prior, they would give me 4 a.m. shifts during the fourth quarter season. And as I was doing the paper, I joked, they're gonna make me 4 a.m. bitch again. Guess who was 4 a.m. bitch again? 4 a.m. bitch means that I have to wake up at 2 a.m. So I have to split my sleep into two. Like, there's no other way. I'm not going to bed at 6 p.m. I'd rather die. So I'm exhausted constantly because if for those of you that don't know, splitting your sleep into two is like baking your bread for about half the time, taking it out of the oven and setting it on the counter for 8 hours, and then putting it back in the oven to finish cooking. So it's not going to be great bread. But yeah, they'd have us working like 7-8 days in a row at a time on, 4 hours of sleep overnight. It was usually 3 for me. I was exhausted and done with everything. Another piece of this story I should explain: the ship-alones. So ship-alones are a bit different from other shipping items. Ship-alones, theoretically, you're supposed to be able to pick them, print out a label, a shipping label, and slap it on the box. So you don't need to put it in a box, no bubbles, nothing. You can just send it out, theoretically. However, the system is so fucked up that there is a certain jar of pickles that registers as ship-alones, which was funny at first, but it wasn't funny after a while. And with ship-alones, you gotta push around a huge fucking flatbed, and the items are huge sometimes. You're lifting team lift shit by yourself. And I'm on 3 hours of sleep. Even worse is that packing ship-alones, because theoretically you're supposed to just put a label on them, right? Well, you can't do that with a jar of pickles. You do actually need to pack the jar of pickles. And what sucks about that is that it's only one item per box. So each item you have needs to go in one box instead of, on a regular cart where it could be like 15 items going in one box. It's a thing. I'm not going to explain more. But so not only were they terrible to pick, they were terrible to pack. And she made us 4 a.m. shifts do them for like 2 weeks straight instead of, utilizing her best pickers to pick the 10,000 fucking units in the system. We laughed one day because one day the store manager was like, okay, let's actually get the best pickers picking right now. Let's get them all going. And guess what we did? We knocked it all out. We knocked like 2,000 out. Just 3 of us. 2,000 units by ourselves. And we have 70 team members. The planning was awful. So we were getting really, really fucking exhausted, not to mention they did not respect my other team member's availability request. They put her at 4 a.m. for at least a week or two until she put her foot down and was like, why didn't you respect my availability? So watching respected team members get blatantly disrespected, my team lead being an asshole, being forced to do like probably the most physical labor with 3 hours of sleep, and it wasn't even logically sound in the first place. All of that added up after a while. Even the trainees fucking up sometimes, at least it was funny. The person that decided not to put milk and eggs and meat in a fridge or a freezer and instead put them in a dry bin, at least that was a little funny. Yes, that did happen. I don't know what 16-year-old is that fucking dumb, but watch, it wasn't even a 16-year-old. It was like a grown-ass adult. They weren't even the problem, although a lot of people tried to act like the trainees were worse this year when, no, they weren't worse this year. It was worse last year, actually, and the year before, but some of these trainees were actually pretty cool. Some of them annoyed the hell out of me, but that's besides the point. The last and final straw was my store manager. My store manager is a man that is always right. He does not directly work in our positions daily, yet he somehow thinks that he knows better than us because he's the store manager. He gives these ass ideas on how to run the department, and I'd say 6 times out of 10 they fail, and yet he still thinks he's always right. And the only person that he'll listen to when he is wrong is himself. I'd, do underpaid team lead shit without being asked, and he'd come in and he'd undermine all my work. I just dealt with it. Whatever. Take the reins. It's not my job anyways. The final straw. So there were 4 people that came in at 4 a.m. 5 people were scheduled. 1 of them did not come in. Because of Illinois labor laws, if you have an unpaid lunch, you need to go on that unpaid lunch before the 5-hour mark. We call that hitting compliance. If you hit compliance, which means you take your lunch after the 5-hour mark, the store gets fined a hefty amount. So they're pretty strict on the compliance there, which means between 8 and 9 a.m., 4 people needed to go on a 30-minute break, which means even if we spaced it out evenly, there would be a 15-minute overlap for at least 2 team members at a time, even if we spaced it out evenly, and that was possible. It's usually not. He comes in, and I say to him directly, okay, I move some team members here and here. Do what you gotta do. I need to go on my 30. And, he reverses all my work like a douchebag, and I go on my 30, as I said I would. Another team member is there. She's also a long-term team member, and we're both pretty respected and whatnot. So we're just taking our 30. He calls everyone back for a huddle, which is where he gathers everybody and he gives directions and whatnot. Mind you, I let him know that I was going on my 30 beforehand. I don't know why he was surprised. And also, we were dead on that day, so it didn't even matter when I went on my lunch. It didn't matter. They usually care because they don't want, 50 people going at the same time, but we had no work and 50 team members, so it didn't matter. One of the team members that also needed to go on lunch had just finished and was walking back. So there were 2 4 a.m.s that went to the huddle, 2 4 a.m.s that were on their break. I heard through the grapevine, a little birdie told me that in front of all of these, trainees, he made a comment like, these 2 tenured team members know better than to be on their 30 at the same time. This is not the only time that man decided not to use his fucking brain. There's been plenty of other times where he'd look at a situation, make a snap judgment, and have an entirely, wrong understanding of what's going on. Because he thinks too fast and doesn't take the time to consider all of the situations that may or may not be happening. He regularly forgets that we have to take our breaks and we have to remind him. It seems kind of small, but this isn't obviously the only time that he made a stupid remark like that without actually looking into or thinking about what situation may have caused that. And not to mention, it didn't matter because we didn't have the work anyways. It just felt like a slap in the face for him to just be so fucking dumb after everything I did for him over 4th quarter. The disrespect and the lack of critical thinking. You should not be getting a 6-figure salary if you are that fucking stupid. That was the final straw. I immediately went, nope, not doing this anymore. Because at that point, I saw my future flash before my eyes. I saw myself getting the same treatment as those other team members, where they were in line for a team lead position and just to get denied the team lead position and have to train the next team lead. I saw my life flash before my eyes and I went, all right, no, we're not doing this anymore. So I immediately searched for another job and got one within a week. And I put in my 2 weeks. Yeah, and not to mention, one of my coworkers joked that I was a 4-lifer. That also made my life flash before my eyes, and I did not take that as a joke. I took that as a challenge, so I quit. Now I get paid $4 more an hour, and I am going to be offered health care and a 401k. I have a big boy job now. When it clicked, and I finally just understood. They were just going to use me for the rest of my life. So I ran. Not that I was planning on staying for the rest of my life, but even the joke that I would made me spiteful. So I left. I almost felt a satisfaction when my team lead and my store manager pulled me aside and didn't necessarily beg me to stay. They said that they were happy for me. But they did give off this sad vibe that I was leaving. Maybe my team lead was more genuine, but my store manager also gave this, regretful, sad speech to me. And I just felt a satisfaction at that point. You don't actually care that I'm leaving. You don't care for me. You care that you don't get to exploit me for my labor anymore. You don't get to exploit me and make me do team lead shit for team member pay. That's what you're sad about. You don't care about me. If you did, you would stop being a fucking idiot. So if there is a moral to this story, kids, do not allow authority to use you for work you are not being paid for.